This is Savio. I've been seeking answers to some of life's most perplexing questions my entire life. In 2014, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and ever since, I realized my calling existed outside of what I knew to be familiar. This podcast is your home for survivors like myself and those who are searching to find meaning to their why. In Season 2, the show includes a mix of coaching sessions followed immediately by interviews with those from all walks of life who have been successful in the business, marketing, coaching, and financial worlds. The intent is to show the human experience in its rawest form so that others may glean insight. Nothing is rehearsed or has been edited. As a board-certified wellness coach, my job is to ask the deep questions of those trying to make sense of their place in this fractured world. I believe life speaks to us in different ways. Many of us listen but don't know how or where to begin. As someone who has crossed the bridge between life and death, I say simply, begin where you are now and get busy living. If you liked today's episode, I would appreciate it if you could share it and subscribe. Be sure to tag me at The Human Resolve so I can reciprocate in kind. So without further ado, welcome to the Human Resolve podcast. Paul Glover constantly puts the wants of his clients over his own. To shore up his own needs, he vows to let go of self-destructive ways and to turn the tables using his no BS coach approach. Hi, Paul. Good to see you.
Savio, the same.
Excellent. So what would you like coaching on today?
You know something, I find that I, like so many others, are not attuned to self-care. We get so tied up in our business, in our daily lives, that we forget that we need to take care of ourselves before we can take care of others. And that to me is something that most business leaders also suffer from. And we always talk about leaders should be the example. And in my coaching practice, I continually tell people that they need to self-care and make sure their team knows about it. But curiously, in my own life, I have a tendency to ignore that. By the way, we always ignore our own advice, don't we?
Yeah.
I have no problem telling other people what they should do. But when it comes to what I do, then I have blind spots. And one of them is I believe that I'm just invulnerable, invincible, and I can just roll on, take care of others, and never take care of myself. So that's the issue that I'm dealing with.
Great. So what I heard is about sort of this concept of self-care and taking your own advice that you dole out to others. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. So what would be a fantastic outcome for today?
Actually, I guess more awareness of first the need for self-care, but second, perhaps some suggestions about what that should mean.
So the need for self-care and suggestions. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you think of...
Let me tell you, I've got the basics down. I realize you should get more sleep, you should get exercise, and you should eat correctly, and I don't do any of those.
Okay, so more sleep, exercise, and eat correctly. Out of those three, which one is the top one that you do the least?
Do the least is probably sleep.
Sleep. Okay, so what's a typical sleep day for you?
Probably 4 hours.
4 hours. Have you always been able to function that way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a habit, and I developed it and have not been able to overcome it, even though I read all the research about the need to do an ample amount of sleep. And the problem is, of course, I think I function well. It's a blind spot because I think I could function better.
So in the 4 hours of sleep that you get, are you refreshed and relaxed?
I'm never relaxed, and I wake up tired, but I can't sleep. I've not been able to readjust my pattern.
So is the sleep more about things on your mind or just not feeling like you need the sleep?
No, always things on my mind. I can't shut it down.
So the things on your mind, where's the origins of that?
First, it's anything that the professional aspect of it, because I am a coach. I am always dealing with somebody else's issue and trying to find that approach, not solution, but approach for me to coach them and hopefully help them find the solution. It doesn't ever go away. and my mind is just busy. And then the personal issues that I deal with my family have been, because I have a child, 40-year-old child, and I tell everyone, you're never not my child, and so we've been dealing with that for over 2 years, trying to find a replacement kidney. Thank God that's been resolved. But yeah, with added to the mix, it's a daily concern. It never goes away.
It's a daily concern, and it never goes away. When you think about all that sort of ruminating in your mind, are there other parts of your body that are feeling any type of tinge of any kind?
Any type of tinge. I've got a 70-year-old body. Believe me, there's plenty of tinges. But no, nothing in particular. I mean, I don't. I'm a believer in massage. So I do that once a week. That's a good tension reliever. No, I function pretty well. I mean, physically, I've got the aches and pains just from doing weird stuff all my life, but nothing other than that.
Do you do any body work for yourself?
I do. I exercise every morning, not enough, but I do a quick trip to the gym, and then I try to take a walk during the afternoon. But by the way, those two things get off my schedule very quickly, depending on the day.
I see. What about sort of incorporating any type of mindfulness in your life?
No, don't do that.
No? Are you interested in doing that?
I've tried. I'm terrible at meditating. I have found there's one aspect, walking a labyrinth or a maze, which is walking meditation. The problem is, of course, you have to go someplace and do that. But trying to meditate has never worked well for me.
Would you like to do a little experiment with me right now?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just want you to get comfortable in your seat. If you feel inclined, you can close your eyes if you feel safe to do that, or you can just soften your gaze. Just want you to take 3 deep breaths in and 3 deep breaths out. I just want you to visualize all that sort of ruminating in your mind. Just picture it like an elevator. So you're on the top floor with your mind. And I want you to, on the count of 3, try to go down into your belly when I go to 1. So 3, 2, 1. What's happening, Paul?
Well, you get a relaxation in your shoulders and throughout the body to your stomach.
Is there any sort of prompting of any kind in your body?
No.
When you go into your belly, do you feel or sense anything?
No.
If you move into your heart, do you feel or sense anything?
No.
What's your mind saying right now?
It's saying, when is this going to be over?
When is this going to be over? Okay, you got to tell me more about that.
It just doesn't feel comfortable to me.
It doesn't feel comfortable.
No.
Have you always, you mentioned earlier that your default is the mind, but has it always served you well?
Well, when you say serve me well, obviously choices, bad choices and good choices. I have more bad choices than good choices. So I'm not sure that my mind has served me well.
Could you resource any of the other parts of your body to serve you well in this, in all the things that you need to face in this life?
I need an explanation of that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so you mentioned that your mind has served you well, and then sometimes it hasn't due to bad choices. So I asked you to sort of go and resource, your belly or your heart, and you said there wasn't really much that was prompting you. So I was just wondering, is there anything that those two, organs can sort of help you with in this life?
I don't know that.
No.
Nothing comes to mind.
Yeah. So when you think of sort of self-care just generally, what's your idea of self-care?
Well, again, my concept is that if I am to take care of others, I need to take care of myself first. That gives me the energy, the wherewithal, the sustenance to actually perform my coaching opportunities and take care of my family. So I recognize the need for it. It's something that I coach others to do and put together a program for them. And I try to put together a program for me. My problem is I don't follow it. I'm really good at the planning. It's the execution.
So what do you think stops you from following through?
First, other things. I'm prone to reprioritizing based on what I recognize as others' needs. So and a part of that is taking care of others. I think coaching to some degree is that. So if there is, for instance, if I'm planning to take a walk at 6 o'clock in the morning or go to the gym, and I have a client who calls or indicates they need to talk, that's immediately what occurs. I put aside the plan and I move to that as a priority.
So what if the opposite happened? What if you put yourself as a priority that day as opposed to the client? What would happen?
Well, I'm not sure what would happen. It depends on what the client has to talk about. And until I always make the assumption that if a client contacts me out of the schedule, that they need to, that there's something going on. And most of the time there is. Otherwise, people stick to the schedule. So not reprioritize and put them first would not set well with me. I would not be comfortable with that.
So what tell me, how would you feel? What would happen?
I would feel like I was not doing my job. I was not serving the needs of a client who had a need and was expressing it by wanting to talk.
Do you feel like the client's needs are top priority over yours?
They are.
And do you like it like that?
Well, of course. I get back from what I do. And having that attitude of being available and attempting to assist someone when they're dealing with an issue is fulfilling. And if it wasn't, I guess I wouldn't do it. But it is fulfilling, and therefore it makes me feel good that I'm available and I can assist.
So how do you think you could balance out sort of your needs with the needs of the client?
I don't know that. That's been the problem, is that my self-care is secondary to theirs, and I recognize that I need to be more mindful of what I need, and so I guess I could eliminate an hour of sleep so I could get my exercise in.
So eliminating hours of sleep, if I can do the math correctly, that only leaves you with 3 hours of sleep.
True. So no, we're not going to do that. But other than that, I have to admit it is in my head about the needs of others, and I've not always been cognizant of that. That's not been my past. And when I made the transition from being self-centered to being other-centered, I developed this, I guess, habit or mindset about what that looked like. And perhaps in my head that if I don't do it that way, I'll revert back to being self-centered.
Wow. So basically the focus now has been other-centered rather than self-centered. And if you tip the scales the opposite direction, you'll go back to being self-centered.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a happy medium between two extremes?
So far, I haven't found it. I mean, by the way, I can mentally accept that. I have not been able to emotionally.
Would you like to resource your heart and see if there's a message for you there?
Okay. Again, you're talking. You're saying. I hear the words. I'm not sure what the words mean.
Yeah. I just want you to be silent and just try to focus as if you're visualizing your heart, and see if there's anything that comes up, visualization or a message or sound, and see if maybe nothing comes up. Nothing comes up.
No.
That's fair. So, Paul, how do you think you can sort of rectify another area of self-care that you mentioned? You mentioned sleep as being a priority, and then you mentioned some other ones. How do you think you can sort of make those a priority in your life?
That is the question. I don't know that. I understand. Like I said, I can rationally understand the need for that balance. I just have not been able to get there emotionally. And again, I think it is a. I can tell you why I think that I already did. That I've transitioned because of my experiences from being self-centered to being other-centered, because I realized being self-centered was ultimately destructive for me. And it led me to bad choices and to bad outcomes. So I get it. Again, I'm not able to take the rationalization and turn it, because when you refer to the heart, I immediately think emotional. And that trying to get that balance between the two is something I've not been able to achieve.
Yeah. So in your youth, have you ever been other-centered besides this transitional period that you've been through?
Sure. In my youth, I was absolutely other-centered because of my parental situation. Came from a broken home, had a younger sister, and it was my obligation to take care of her. And I did, and to take care of my mother in some cases. And yeah, I was, not by the way, not necessarily by choice. It was by necessity, and accepted the obligations of taking care of others within the family unit.
So then fast forward to me. So when did the shift happen from other-centered in your youth to self-centered?
Probably when I got out of the service, started working. I was by myself, not connected to the family anymore, and started to develop my profession as an attorney. And at that point, I went from other-centered to self-centered.
And then when did the shift happen from the self-centered to other-centered?
About 2 years into my incarceration.
Oh, wow.
Is when the realization came to me that the way I was approaching life was destructive to myself and to others, and that in fact I needed to eliminate this being self-centered and become more other-centered. And so, yeah, 2 years of incarceration, and then I spent the next 3 years of incarceration actually working hard at making that happen.
Do you feel like you processed that experience fully?
Well, I think I absolutely processed it fully. I'm not sure that I processed it correctly, because it was not a balance. It was one or the other, and that continues to be the issue. Is that apparently I need more therapy, but I've not been able to find the balance, because it feels to me like it is one or the other. I can't get them to mesh to where I could say no to a client rather than yes. And by the way, I coach saying no. As a part of anybody's life, that you need to say no, that otherwise people will take advantage. They will be forever attempting you to do something you shouldn't do.
What do you think some of the keys were for your survival during that time?
Which time?
The time in incarceration. So many people falter.
They do, and I think that for the first 2 years I did. The first 2 years of incarceration was spent on revenge fantasy. How I was going to get even with all those that had caused me to be incarcerated. It was only when I finally accepted responsibility for myself and my actions that I was able to make that transition. But it took 2 years of battling the demons of revenge and being self-centered, that I did not cause any of the things that happened to me, even though it became apparent at some point that all of my wounds were self-inflicted.
All your wounds were self-inflicted and taking responsibility.
Yep.
So, I don't know, do you think there's any wisdom in that, taking responsibility and right now in trying to figure out the self-care aspect of your life?
Absolutely. It never has felt like I should be counting on someone else when it comes to self-care. I think that by definition, self-care, even though it requires support, is something that each individual has got to deal with.
Is there anyone in your life that you admire who just has this balance going on really well?
That's probably a no. I think that most leaders struggle with this and may work at it, but are very bad at it. And again, I think that if you're an effective leader, a part of that is, are you a servant leader? And the mindset of a servant leader is to do exactly that. And I do believe that leaders, will sacrifice themselves for others. And by the way, that's a terrible attitude. That's not what being a servant leader is about. It's not sacrificing yourself. It is about serving others, but not in a destructive fashion. And so I get, like I said, I can rationally, because I preach this, I coach this, I can rationally accept this. I have not been able to apply it.
So, Paul, what would be like if I could, snap my fingers and create that dream life for you, where self-care has been balanced? What does the day look like?
I can tell you that since it is a dream or a fantasy, I would believe that I'd be better at my job. I think that self-care does allow you to take care of others better. And I would hope that the vitality or the energy that I would get from self-care would transfer itself into the coaching process. That those that I coached would feel that transfer of energy from me to them in a renewed fashion.
So this dream life of yours, if a client called, how would you handle self-care?
Well, obviously, I would like to say that if a client called and they were not scheduled to call, I would tell them, unless this is life or death, which in business is ridiculous to say, or as I would tell people, are you on the ledge?
Huh.
Are you thinking about literally your hair's on fire and you're getting ready to jump? That would be a call that I would accept out of the schedule. But remember, this is not, it's not psychiatry. I know that the rules for psychiatrists are pretty much that. It's not the way it is in business coaching. And availability is huge for leaders, that they do need to talk. And I trust them to not abuse the process by calling me just to say hi. And that's not what happens. I don't have, if someone calls me like that, I'm like, hey, we'll talk in 2 weeks. So I've never felt it be abused. But regardless, back to that, the opportunity to tell people I'm not available to talk is very difficult. The only way that I do that is if I'm on another call. So I guess I could tell people, I say, I can't do that. I'm not lying to people about, I'm not going to take your call because I'm on another call. No, so I'm not sure how I get around that. I really am not. I know that it's probably required.
Is there maybe a gentler way of saying that?
I don't know. I haven't come up with one. Maybe I haven't looked hard enough.
Okay, so Paul, how can we create accountability for you now? Like, how do we move the needle forward so that you can, to some degree, still be there for your clients, still be that resource for them, but yet, make yourself a priority as well?
Don't know that. I actually, because I'm a list guy, I'm looking at self-rules that I've put together, and they have, I can tell you what they are. They have exercise every morning, walk every morning, no fast food, and then I have a variety of other items that are work-related. But I plug that into my self-rules, and I believe that if you have self-rules, you need to abide by them. So I understand what they are. I just violate them. And I'm not sure what I can do about that. Seriously, I've thought long and hard, because I think there's an advantage to it for both myself and my clients and my family. But the reality is that I'm stuck with this attitude about, if I do that, then that's a bad thing.
If I do that, then it's a bad thing. And who's considering it a bad thing?
I am. I'm not sure the clients do or don't. I don't know that, but it would depend on the client. I think that they would be disappointed if, in fact, they needed to talk and I was not taking their call. But every client is different. Some might not be as disappointed as others. But yeah, I would be disappointed in myself.
How could you change that narrative?
Not sure. I don't know. That's why we're having the conversation, is that I am aware, again, I tell clients, there is a mindset that says I'm aware but I don't care. And that's where I'm at with this. I am aware of the situation, but I can't get myself to care enough to do what's necessary, I suppose. And necessary is probably saying no. And I can't get my head there.
What do you think would happen if you said no?
Oh, I have no idea. I think that my clients would be disappointed, but I would suffer that as a disappointment for myself, that I was not there when they needed me.
If you created like parameters for when you're available, how do you think they would react?
There are parameters. I mean, we schedule every other week is the scheduled time to talk. If you're saying create a parameter which says I'm not available until, even if you have an emergency, I'm not available until 8 o'clock. I'm not sure.
Is that worth trying?
Anything's worth trying, Savio. Seriously, it is. When you have a problem and you're seeking an answer, you need to explore all possibilities. That's maybe one that would work, of saying unavailable until 8 a.m. The problem, of course, I can always come up with a reason not to do that, by the way, because I have a national coaching process or practice. The guy on the East Coast has a different age than the guy at the West Coast. So I'm not exactly sure whether it would be, I don't know. That has its own logistics issues tied into it, and I may be making more of those than necessary. Other than that, I don't know. And by the way, I believe in setting boundaries. I think that there have to be boundaries set. The question, of course, is that I am not able to set that type of a boundary. I haven't been able to yet.
Would you be open to a resource?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So what about using things like AI or something where there's an automated sort of response to when they call or when they contact you that still alerts you, but prioritizes the alert for you so that you can pick and choose what you want?
Not a bad idea. Does such a thing exist?
It does, yeah. There's obviously the ones that people use on websites like Intercom, and there's other ones that I could refer you to as well.
Sure, absolutely.
So Paul, we talked a lot about sort of, this sort of idea of self-care and sort of saying no, and how that sort of works in your life now, and how you prioritize your clients versus yourself, and sort of knowing exactly what you know you should do but don't really practice. How does this all sort of shake up with you right now in terms of like moving forward?
Well, right now I have no problem moving forward. I'm not sure that there's a solution to the issue, I guess. Again, as I said, and I did it jokingly, but maybe there's some truth to that. Perhaps it does require therapy to unbind this mindset about it's either one way or the other. There's no middle area. You'd like to think there was some middle area, but no.
And then like with the sleep, if it was sort of increased to 6 hours or 8 hours, do you think you would be more productive?
Probably 6 hours. 8 hours sounds like too much sleep. 6 hours, maybe. I think it's very possible. Yeah.
And have you looked into any, nutritional supplements or any sort of additives that can help you gain that?
No, I haven't.
No. Would you be interested in looking into that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
Excellent, Paul. So we discussed a lot. I mean, how does this all feel?
It feels all right. Yeah. Sounds like there might be a couple of things I could look into that I haven't thought about before, so that's always a good sign.
Okay, excellent. Well, Paul, we're pretty much at the end of this sort of coaching portion, so I want to transition into the interview. So tell my audience more about you.
Sure. I bill myself as the no BS workplace performance coach. I'm not a life coach. I work exclusively with businesses and individual entrepreneurs who need to move from where they are to where they want to be. And so my process is all about that. And the no BS actually is probably a reflection of skill sets. I have a rather checkered history that led me to coaching. I was a union organizer and early on in my life, and that's led me to, because union organizing is people say that you're selling it. You're not really selling union, or you're not selling unionization. What you are selling is a concept, an idea. And the ability to do that and do it successfully is a skill set, because you have to show a vision. You have to have a purpose. And everybody thinks that unionization is about money. Seldom is it about money. It's about treatment. It's about how people feel in the workplace. Are they respected? So the ability to understand what is required to generate purpose is a skill set that I have developed just because of my past, and I'm able to bring to the coaching process, because leaders often know what they want their vision to be, but have difficulty communicating it to the employees. And you need to align the employees, everyone who works with you, on achieving your vision. And so that's a part of what I do. I bring that skill set there, and I'm able to help people formulate and implement the communication process of their vision. So that was the first part of my career. The second part of my career was I became a labor employment lawyer and practiced trial work in the city of Chicago. So I tell people that's where I sharpen my bullshit antenna, because I never had a client that would tell me the truth. That's normal, by the way. Oh, the clients refuse to tell you the truth. Wow. First, they want you to think the best of them. And they want, because in their mind, that means you will relate to them in a more positive fashion, and therefore you will defend them more robustly. Well, that's not true, but it doesn't matter. It's how they look at it. And so I developed a real good BS antenna, and that's absolutely essential when dealing with successful people, because successful people either don't know what their weaknesses or blind spots are, or if they do, they don't want to admit them. And as I engage in the coaching process, I'm alert to their defensiveness or their attempt to hide what they need to address. And what I get paid to do is tell people the truth as I see it. Not the truth as they see it or anybody else see it, but the truth as I see it. And when I see the truth, that they are hiding something or have a blind spot that they refuse to look at, then it's my obligation as their coach to point that out, and then to work with them to overcome that. I've often found that the blind spots are that area where the self-inflicted wound comes to play. If we don't see it, we don't know how to avoid it. Then if we do see it, we need to know what to do about it, because successful people are the most difficult to coach. You say, we need to make you better, and one of their resistance, by the way, everybody is good at the beginning about saying, I'm absolutely committed to the process, and yes, I recognize I have to get better, until the work begins. And at some point, the work becomes hard. Otherwise, they would do it on their own. Successful people usually try to do the most of it on their own. It's when they realize they can't move from where they are to where they need to be without assistance that they seek a coach. Again, it's not psychiatry, right? I'm not delving into their mother and their father's relationship. I'm delving into performance, and the improvement of performance is our conversation. So I'm able to do that first by recognizing the BS, calling out the BS. So that gets me, that's my third area here, right? I've got my second. I've got my organizing skill set, I've got my attorney skill set, and then I go to prison for 5.5 years. Wow. And the reason I went to prison is because I had the mindset of a successful leader. I was running a labor organization at the time as a vice president of a Teamster organization, and I committed a variety of white-collar crimes. I was, as I tell, the concept of hubris, pride,
Yep.
is huge in people who are successful, because they are successful and they're expected to show a certain perspective. They're not supposed to be vulnerable. They're not supposed to be empathetic. They're not supposed to show weaknesses. Well, that develops a mindset where you start believing it. And then you become a narcissist. And narcissism is rampant amongst leaders, just because they've been forced to focus so myopically on how to be successful that it becomes who they are in their head and how they present themselves. And that's where I was at. I was the smartest guy in the room, according to me. And I had that attitude that it was my way or the highway. I knew what was right. No one else did. All you had to do was do what I tell you, and things would be fine. And if you had an opinion, it would be one I gave you. I didn't want to hear somebody else's opinion. So I had all of those characteristics, and I believe that many leaders, not all, but many leaders share those same characteristics. There was actually a study that came out a few years ago that the personality of a CEO, of a Fortune 500 CEO, and a serial killer were the same.
Wow.
So, oh yeah, those traits are there. So I understand. By the way, it's self-destructive, and it's also destructive to others. It's also destructive to the organization. And if you value the organization, and you value others, and you value yourselves, you need to divest yourself of that approach, of that mindset. Not only its personality as much as mindset. I didn't. And to show you how arrogant I was found guilty, and I was in front of the judge being sentenced. And in the federal sentencing guidelines, there is an opportunity to have your sentence reduced by 18 months if you accept responsibility for your crimes. So you're standing in front of the judge, he's going to sentence you, and he will ask you, will you accept responsibility for your crimes? Now remember, this is an 18-month reduction in sentence. My answer was no. Of course, I look back on it at that person and I go, how arrogant could you be? To have been found guilty, to know you're going to prison, and yet not reduce your sentence by absolutely acknowledging your wrongdoing. This is, by the way, and as much as I would like to think that's rare, it's not. One more example of that is Saddam Hussein. Here's a guy who controlled a country, who was a dictator, and the only thing he had to admit was he didn't have weapons of mass destruction. By the way, he didn't. And yet he would never admit that, and they hunted him down and hung him. He never would accept responsibility or admit that he was weak. So I bring that as a skill set because I am that perfect example of self-inflicted wounds and hubris. So in the coaching process, when I'm coaching a leader, I am able to recognize those traits and have that discussion based on personal experience, and make sure that it has the impact necessary to help a person first recognize those issues and then deal with them. Because I did. It took 2 years of incarceration. And by the way, I don't recommend that process. I truly believe that you need to not be as slow a learner as I was. But I also tell people that prison saved my life. There is absolutely no question in my mind that I would have died early on if I hadn't gone to prison. Just because of who I was and the lifestyle and the people I associated with. So I've taken those and I put them together into what I think is a unique skill set when it comes to coaching. First, it's all about outcome. I'm not willing to accept the fact that you can't get there as long as you're willing to commit to the work. I now become your accountability partner, because I believe that coaches need to hold people accountable. And also I put my skin in the game. My coaching process first is no shorter than a year because I absolutely realize how long it takes to move from here to there. It's not a month, it's not 3 months. I found that a year will get us there. The second thing is 50% of my compensation is based on a positive outcome. If at the end of that 12 months, the client is not happy with the outcome, I don't receive that compensation. I call that what everybody does, skin in the game. And I find that if you don't have skin in the game, you have a different perspective. Yeah. One of the things is that I, as your accountability partner, as we work our way through the action plan we've set to achieve the goal that you tell me you want to achieve. I never tell anyone what their goals should be. They will tell me. I will test that to make sure that it's legitimate. And that's easy enough to do. Some people make up goals because they think it's what somebody wants to hear. Yeah. I don't want to hear, I want to be a better person. Yep. You need to talk to someone else, not me. Yeah. If you want to be a better communicator, if you want to be better at conflict management, if you have a hard goal, I will help you get there, assist. And then we put that together and we work on it mutually. Every other week we have a call. And one of three things will happen in that call. You'll either tell me you're going to quit, which is fine because I don't have anything that says you've got to stay in the program. But if you quit, you pay me in full. Once you've committed, you need to stick with it. And I have to have something there that requires you to do so other than your self-determination. Because the work gets hard. And when the work gets hard, there has to be some motivation beside yourself. And I recognize internal motivation is better than any other motivation. But it doesn't hurt to have somebody nudge you, keep you going. You create momentum. And so you'll either tell me you're going to quit, which I'm like, okay, good to know, write me the check. The second thing is you're going to tell me you did whatever we agreed you were going to do, because every 2 weeks has an action step that needs to be taken. And we talk about that, we look at what it means, and then implementation, of course, is entirely on the client. I cannot implement the plan. I'm not there. That's fantastic. You get hugs. Yeah. Right?
There's so many great things you mentioned there. I wanted to sort of ask you with sort of this element of young leaders. How do you think a young leader who's just starting out cannot make the same mistakes? What do you think is necessary or needed?
I think the first thing they need to do is get a coach who has some experience or a mentor. You can't do this because believe me, if you've not walked the path, you don't know the path. And I understand everybody goes, well, my path's going to be different. I do pro bono speaking to law students. And when I tell them about my experience, the first thing that they look at me and they go, well, that's not me. Well, when I graduated from law school, that was not me either. I was an idealist. I was going to help people. I was going to practice law for the benefit of others. No, I didn't come here saying, I think I'm going to loot the pension fund. That's not how it goes. What happens is there's a transition, and if you're not aware of the transition, it occurs. Lawyers are extraordinarily arrogant. They're expected to be. They're expected to have all the answers. And as you become successful, you become even more arrogant. And then you start to believe you deserve. And if you start to believe you deserve, then you start to do things so that you get what you deserve. There is a pattern to this, and I have 10 steps that I go over the law students with. And I tell them, you're looking at me saying, well, that'll never be me. I hope not. But let me tell you that it could be you. So what you need to do is understand the perils of every journey to wherever you want to go. And you can't do that because you don't know what they are unless someone talks to you about them. Unless someone says, here's something to beware of. How about this? Here's an associate you need to stay away from. Because that person is not doing you well. And if you continue to hang with the wrong people, I guarantee you something bad's going to happen to you. It's guaranteed. Because you will want to fit in. I tell people, I was a bad guy wannabe. I hung around with bad guys because that was what I wanted to be. They found me, I found them. And also, you need to know your blind spots because other people see them. And they will take advantage of your blind spots for their advantage. So I absolutely believe that at the very beginning of your career, you need to seek out someone who has traveled a similar path and have them there for advice. If nothing, if it's a mentor, that's fantastic. I think a coach is even better, but most young people are like, well, I can't afford a coach. Well, you don't know whether or not your company wouldn't provide that. How about if you explore the opportunity? Or find yourself a trusted advisor. They're there. We don't seek them out. So that would be the first thing I would say is don't count on yourself as you start your journey of professionalism.
Has there been a book that has shaped your worldview in a positive way?
A book. I'm an avid reader. If you would ask me that, I would probably have to go back to philosophy and psychology. I read a lot of that, and I also did religious studies while I was in prison, something I never explored before. But I couldn't, right now, I could not pull up a book.
Yeah. So any last pieces of advice for just, listeners out there to sort of be on the straight and narrow, but, not so fall into the pitfalls of temptation and everything else that the world gives us on a day-to-day basis?
It does. And by the way, the concept of emotional intelligence is all grounded in the fact that before we can be anything to others, we need to know ourselves. And we don't spend time doing that. My contention, even though I don't meditate, I reflect. I believe at the end of every week, you need to reflect. You need to look at the good things and the bad things that happened and make some decisions about, did you do the right thing? Did you do the wrong thing? I also believe that every morning starts with gratitudes. If you don't recognize how good your life is, you can be lulled into believing it's not. And once we believe our life is not good, we will look for a way to make it good. And that's when we start doing things that we shouldn't do, associating with people we shouldn't associate with. So my contention is you start the day with gratitudes, and you pay attention to those. When I walk to Starbucks at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm saying my gratitudes. And at the end of the evening, I say my gratitudes. Some people say prayer. I'm okay with whatever you want to label it. You just need to recognize how good your life is, and it is. And then that reflection at the end of the week. First, I truly believe in keeping a notebook. And during the day, you write down whatever's happening to you and in your life, because we often forget the good because the bad is always in front of us. But at some point, you need reflection, because reflection gives you the opportunity to correct your course. Those would be the two things. Be grateful and reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. I like those two tenets. And then also what you just displayed today, which was honesty, just being really truthful about your past experiences and just owning it and trying to get better, which I really loved. So where can my audience find you on the internet?
I'm easily found, Paul at paulglovercoaching.com if you want to email me. And also on LinkedIn, Paul Glover Coaching. And because I appreciate what you do and I appreciate your coaching, anyone who does contact me from your audience, I will be more than happy to arrange a 15-minute coaching call.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you so much for that offer.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Paul, this was definitely eye-opening. I really thank you for just being in the moment and being present. So that's really, really refreshing. So thank you so much.
And Savio, thank you so much for the opportunity. Like I said, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your approach, and I know your audience does too. So I wish you good things.
Okay, thank you so much, Paul. Take care. Hi there. I really hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast episode of The Human Resolve. If you feel that others may enjoy this episode as well, please share socially at The Human Resolve. They can also visit my website, thehumanresolve.com, where I offer one-on-one coaching sessions, daily prompts to move you in the right direction, sync directly to your smartphone, and a subscription to my weekly newsletter where I probe into the secrets from living smarter to feeding your 3 brains. If you could also help me out and give me a review and rating on this platform, because I do care what you have to say. I would really appreciate it. Now, get out there, my friends, and get busy living.